Hello and welcome. We are in conversation with a customer of the BPM industry on the financial services side. We are speaking with Rimpal Chawla of Suisse Consulting, who's based in Hyderabad. Rimpal, thank you very much for joining us. So give us a sense of how Suisse is touching or interacting with the BPM industry in India, and to what is the kind of scale and size that you're now working at.
So as you know, Credit Suisse is a large investment bank, right? And I represent the asset management business within Credit Suisse. And asset management is a very, very large, we are one of the largest players in the world as far as asset management is concerned. And within asset management, I typically, come from the alternative investments industry, which entails private equity, hedge funds, credit, commodities, and so on and so forth. So about, 5 or 6 years back, we embarked on this initiative to figure out, how can we effectively integrate our workforce with the global workforce. And in the bargain reduce costs, get efficient processes and so on. So we basically, use India and other, global service centers across the globe to, buy services. So we buy services for our asset management businesses. And these services could be in the nature of analytics. These could be in the nature of modeling or research or operations or finance or whatever it may be. And basically, we are a big consumer of some of these services.
Right. So, and how has this been changing in recent years? Are you seeing more services being offered, or have you seen some go up and then go back again and come back again?
So I think it's a mix of both, right? I don't think there is a one size fits all. So when we started about 6 years back, it was from scratch. We started with zero as our starting number, and at this point in time, we have about 25% of the total global asset management workforce based out of India and a few other places.
So how many people is that?
So it's about 400 plus people.
And these are obviously very qualified and
absolutely
highly skilled workforce.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is highly skilled workforce. This is a very niche area. This is an area which is not readily available in the India marketplace. And so I think we have seen a lot of changes over the last 5 or 6 years, predominantly because we wanted the industry to change and the service providers to change. So, it's one thing to say that you buy services, you train them, you tell them what the process is, and you consume the process. And it is another thing to expect something from them as a solution. So I think, over the years, we have managed to move the needle a little bit, wherein we are the ultimate owner of the process versus we are the owner of the process, but we buy a solution rather than we buy a service.
So what are the kind of challenges that you've seen more recently? I mean, for instance, quality of skills, ability to deliver, and so on.
I think, it's the usual challenges, right? I mean, quality of skill is a problem. Training is a big problem because, as I said, right, I think, the service industry in India is largely an order taker industry. They would like to take orders, get trained, and then deliver the service, as opposed to what we are used to in our business markets, New York, London, Hong Kong, or wherever they may be. So we are, typically the generator of, the process. And therefore, to train somebody in India. So I mean, I use this analogy all the time. You get good raw material in India, but you need to convert it into a finished product. And what I would like to see is more finished product than raw material, which is kind of continuously trained by us on various products and facets and processes and so on.
Right. So there has been an economic upturn in the Western world. UK, Europe is out of recession. US is looking stronger. What has all that meant for you here, sitting in Hyderabad?
So I think we have been an integral part of the overall asset management business, and I think we have integrated ourselves very well with the global workforce. So when the markets are on an upswing in the US and Europe and so on, I think we are the expansion of business in the US is seeing similar expansion in India. Right. So it's not like we are dealing with the rest of our business areas. So in fact it was the other way around, right? I think actually, let me put it this way: when there was downturn, in India saw demand because the cost pressures were very high, and now because they are on an upswing, we are seeing demand because the businesses, the pie is increasing. Right. So I think this environment is much better than the previous environment because you get a lot of cooperation because the pie itself is increasing, and there are opportunities in New York which are turning into opportunities in India.
So what are the challenges that you see ahead, let's say in the next 1 year or even 1 or 2 years, on all the sort of points that influence your business, whether it's people, costs, raw material, and so on?
So I think the biggest challenge that we face is that people are tired of just accepting status quo. And I, for one, am a strong believer in that. So, status quo is a given, cost arbitrage is a given, nobody really wants to talk about that anymore. So all we need to do is, move beyond that. So the challenge is, how do we find somebody, or how do we create a niche service wherein, we just go and buy service, and somebody who takes ownership for the service that they're providing to us, and somebody takes responsibility and, basically takes the corresponding risk as well. So right now all of the risk is sitting on my books, whatever that business might be. If there is an error, the service provider is going to be like, ultimately you were responsible. So I would like to see that change a little bit. So those are some of the challenges that we are facing. And as I said, training, some of the people that you end up hiring here, especially at the entry level, are so raw that it's very, very difficult to make do with them. So it requires a big 6 months of investment before the guy becomes productive.
Right. And finally, are you seeing any new verticals come in, or different types of streams of work that's sort of comes to Hyderabad or sent to Hyderabad?
Sure. No, I think I can speak for my industry. I can speak for my own company. And as I said, when we started, we were basically looking at low-hanging fruit, and then we climbed up the value chain so much so that right now we pretty much do everything. From research to analytics to having buddies for our analysts there in the US and so on.
So what do buddies do?
So basically, if you are a fund manager in the US, you have a buddy in India who is basically going to be your arms and legs as far as heavy lifting is concerned. So till the point that a customer presentation needs to be done, he will probably do everything, and at the last minute the analyst in the US is going to take a look at it and make sure that the final touches and tweaks are done before it is sent out the door.
Right.
So all of those high-end activities, preparing investment committee memorandums, for example, I never dreamt that we will be able to do that, 5-6 years back. But right now, before the memo goes to the investment committee, 80% of the legwork, 90% of the legwork happens in India. And the final 10%, wherein somebody wants to add some color and their own perspective to it, gets added by the person who is ultimately presenting to the committee and making sure that it gets approved.
Right, Rimpal. Thank you very much for speaking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.